You're standing at the edge of the rest of your life, and you don't even know it yet. 6 months, 180 days. That's the distance between who you are right now and someone you wouldn't even recognize in the mirror. Not because you'll look different, maybe you will, but that's not the point. You'll think different, move different, choose different. The voice in your head that's been running the same tired loops for years, it'll sound like a stranger's recording. And here's the part that's gonna sting a little. You already know this is true. You've watched other people do it. You've seen someone disappear into their transformation and emerge on the other side unrecognizable. You told yourself they were lucky, special, connected, genetically blessed. But you knew, deep down in that place you don't like to visit, you knew they just decided. And then they didn't undecide. That's it. That's the whole terrible, beautiful secret. 6 months is long enough to rebuild anything. Your body, your business, your bank account, your confidence, your entire operating system. It's also short enough that you can see the finish line from the starting block, which means you can't lie to yourself about time running out. You have time. You just don't have any more time to waste pretending you don't. The life you want isn't on the other side of perfect conditions. It's on the other side of 6 months of imperfect action. Daily. Relentless. Uncomfortable. This audiobook isn't going to hold your hand and tell you it's easy. It's going to tell you the truth. And the truth is this: everything you want is available to you. Right now. Today. But it requires a version of you that doesn't exist yet. That version is waiting 6 months from now. The only question is whether you're willing to walk toward them or keep having the same conversation with yourself a year from now, 5 years from now, on your deathbed. Hey, drop a comment right now. What's the one thing you've been putting off that 6 months could completely change? Write it down. Make it real. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Lie of Overnight Success. You've been lied to your whole life about how change works. Not maliciously, maybe, but consistently. By movies, by Instagram, by the highlight reels of people who conveniently forget to mention the 3,000 days of failure that came before their sudden breakthrough. They'll show you the book deal, not the 100 rejections. The six-pack, not the 2 years of meal prep at 5 a.m. The sold-out launch, not the empty webinars they hosted for an audience of 3. And you, beautiful and naive and hopeful, internalized a story that goes like this. Transformation happens in a moment. One decision, one epiphany, one bolt of lightning that rearranges your entire existence while you sleep. So, you wait for the lightning. You buy the program, read the book, listen to the podcast, get inspired, feel the surge of possibility, and then nothing. Because inspiration without implementation is just entertainment. You didn't fail because you're broken. You failed because you believed in magic instead of math. Here's the math. 6 months is approximately 180 days. If you improve by just 1% each day, you're not 180% better at the end. You're 37 times better. That's the compound effect. That's the algorithm the highlight reel doesn't show you. But it requires showing up on day 17, when the excitement is gone. On day 43, when nothing seems to be happening. On day 92, when you're exhausted and everyone around you thinks you're obsessed. The overnight success you've been chasing, it takes about 6 months of overnights. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was a graphic designer who hated her job, tolerated her body, and numbed out every evening with wine and Netflix. Not because she was weak, because she was human. And humans avoid discomfort like it's lethal. She tried before. Gym memberships in January, business ideas in spiral notebooks. diets that lasted until Thursday. But one day, she stopped trying to change everything and started changing one thing. She committed to 6 months. Not to perfection, to process. She didn't quit her job on day one. She started waking up 1 hour earlier. She didn't launch a business. She designed one thing each morning before work. Logos, posters, concepts nobody asked for. She didn't overhaul her diet. She added protein to breakfast. Tiny, boring, unremarkable. But by month 2, she had a portfolio of 60 designs. By month 4, she had her first freelance client. By month 6, she had replaced half her income and finally believed she could leave. She didn't go viral. There was no feature in Forbes. But her life? Completely unrecognizable. And here's what she told me that I'll never forget. I didn't feel different until month 3. I wanted to quit every single day before that. I thought nothing was happening. But I just kept showing up. And then one morning, I woke up and realized I wasn't the same person anymore. That's the lie, you see. Change doesn't happen in the moment you decide. It happens in the 1,000 moments after when you honor that decision, even though it feels like nothing is working. The first month is hell. You're doing the work of the future while still living in the identity of the past. You're waking up early, but you're still tired. Eating clean, but still craving junk. Showing up, but still unseen. Your brain is wired to seek immediate feedback. It wants proof, evidence, a gold star. And transformation says, not yet. Trust me. Keep going. Most people quit here. They interpret the absence of instant results as evidence of failure, when it's actually evidence of groundwork. You're not building a sandcastle. You're building a foundation. And foundations are supposed to be invisible. So if you're reading this, and you've already tried and failed a dozen times, good. That means you're warmed up. Every failure was a rehearsal. Every restart was data. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. But this time, you're not chasing the lightning. You're becoming the storm. 6 months from now, someone is going to ask you how you did it, how you changed so fast, and you're going to smile. Because you'll know the truth. It wasn't fast. It was just faithful. One day, then another, until the days became a life. You know what's sad? About 85% of you audiences who listen never hit subscribe. If that's you, hit that subscribe button now. It's how you tell me this audiobook matters and motivate me to keep creating more for you. Chapter 2. The Architecture of Transformation. There's a blueprint to this. You think transformation is chaotic, that it's this wild, unpredictable explosion of willpower and luck. But it's not. It's architecture. And every building that lasts follows the same foundational principles, whether it's a body, a business, or a belief system. You need 3 things. Not 30, not a 10-step formula. 3. Clarity, consistency, courage. Let's start with clarity, because this is where most people sabotage themselves before they even begin. You say you want to get healthy. That's not clarity. That's a Hallmark card. You say you want to make more money. Cool. How much? By when? Doing what? You say you want to be happier. Based on what metric? What does happiness look like on a Tuesday at 3 p.m.? Vague goals create vague results. Your brain is a heat-seeking missile, but it needs a target. And somewhere over there isn't a target. So here's what you're going to do. Right now, before this chapter ends, you're going to answer one question with obsessive specificity. What does success look like on day 180? Not, I'll be better. Paint me a picture. What time do you wake up? What's the first thing you do? How do you feel in your body? What's in your bank account? Who's in your phone? What does your calendar look like? What do you say no to that you currently say yes to? Details create belief, and belief creates action. When Sarah designed her 6-month transformation, she didn't write, become a freelancer. She wrote, I will have 5 clients pay me a combined total of $3,000 per month. I will work from a home office with a plant on my desk, and I will feel calm on Sunday nights instead of dread. Specific, visceral, measurable. That clarity became her North Star. Every decision, every morning, every moment of doubt, she asked, does this move me toward day 180 or away from it? Most of your life is spent on things that move you neither toward nor away. They just keep you busy, comfortable, distracted. Clarity is the sword that cuts through it all. Now, let's talk about consistency, because this is where transformation lives or dies. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be present. There's a study out of MIT that tracked habit formation in dozens of participants. They found that missing one day didn't derail progress. Missing 2 days in a row cut the likelihood of long-term success by 47%. It's not about the single missed rep, it's about the pattern you're establishing. Your identity isn't built by what you do once. It's built by what you do when no one's watching, when you're tired, when it doesn't matter. Except it does matter. Every single time you honor your commitment to yourself, you're casting a vote for the identity you're becoming. Every time you break it, you're voting for who you've always been. And here's the beautiful, brutal truth. You don't need to feel like it. Motivation is a lie sold to you by people who've never built anything that lasts. You think the author writes every day because they feel inspired? You think the athlete trains every morning because they're excited? They do it because they decided to, and then they didn't undecide. Consistency isn't about emotion. It's about architecture. You build systems that make the right choice the easy choice. You lay out your gym clothes the night before. You automate your savings. You schedule the work session before you schedule the distraction. You remove the need for willpower by designing an environment where success is the path of least resistance. And then, day after day, you show up. Not because it feels good, because it builds something. Which brings us to courage. Not the loud kind, not the kind that jumps out of airplanes or quits everything in a blaze of glory. The quiet kind. The courage to be misunderstood, to disappoint people, to say no, to look awkward while you're learning, to be bad at something in public, to want more than you're supposed to want. Because here's what nobody tells you about 6-month transformations. The people around you are going to have opinions. They're going to call you obsessed, extreme, different. And they're going to be right. Because you are different now. You're not the person who settles, who makes excuses, who hides. And that makes people uncomfortable because your transformation is a mirror. It shows them what's possible. And if it's possible for you, then it's possible for them. And if it's possible for them, then they're out of excuses. So they'll try to pull you back. Not out of malice, out of fear. You'll need the courage to keep going anyway, to choose the life you're building over the comfort of being understood. Clarity, consistency, courage. That's the architecture. Everything else is decoration. 6 months from now, you're not going to remember the motivation you felt today. You're going to remember the decision you made and whether or not you honored it when it got hard. So decide, right now, what does day 180 look like? Write it down, say it out loud, burn it into your mind. And then tomorrow when you wake up, you're going to take one step toward it. And the day after that, another. Not because it's easy, because it's architecture. And architecture doesn't crumble. Chapter 3. Month 1. The collapse before the rise. Month 1 is a liar. It's going to tell you nothing is working, that you're doing it wrong, that maybe you're not built for this after all. And you're going to want to believe it, because month 1 is hard in a way that doesn't feel heroic or dramatic. It just feels heavy. You wake up early, but you're still exhausted. You eat the right foods, but the scale doesn't move. You do the work, but nobody notices. You're putting in effort that belongs to your future self, but you're still living in the reality of your past self. And that gap,
That's where most people fall, because we've been conditioned to expect immediate feedback. You post something online, you get likes within seconds. You send a text, you see the three dots. You swipe your card, the transaction is instant. But transformation doesn't work like that. Transformation has a lag time, a grace period where you're working in the dark, building something underground, planting seeds in soil that looks exactly the same as it did yesterday. Month 1 is that soil, and it's supposed to look like nothing is happening. Let me tell you what's actually happening beneath the surface while you're panicking that you're wasting your time. Your brain is rewiring. Neuroplasticity researchers at University College London found that it takes an average of 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic. Not 21, 66. That means for the first 2 months, every right choice is going to require effort. Conscious, deliberate, exhausting effort. You're not lazy. You're just still operating on the old programming. Your body is recalibrating. If you're changing your diet, your gut microbiome is literally restructuring itself. The bacteria that thrived on sugar and processed food are dying off, and they're going to scream for what they want on the way out. Those cravings aren't weakness, they're withdrawal. Your nervous system is adjusting. If you're doing something new, something outside your comfort zone, your body is interpreting that as danger. It's flooding you with cortisol, telling you to go back to what's safe. That anxiety you feel? That's not a sign you're on the wrong path. That's a sign you're on a new path. And new always feels like danger to a nervous system that's been running the same loop for years. So when month 1 tells you nothing is working, here's what you need to know. Everything is working. You just can't see it yet. This is the month where you're going to want to quit 17 times. You're going to have a bad day and think, see, I knew this wouldn't work. You're going to see someone else's success and think, they have something I don't. You're going to wake up tired and think, maybe I'm just not disciplined enough. Let me stop you right there. Discipline isn't something you have. It's something you build. And you build it by showing up on the days you don't want to. Every rep counts, but the reps that count the most are the ones that feel like they don't matter. Day 7 when the excitement is worn off. Day 13 when nothing has changed yet. Day 22 when you're sore and bored and starting to forget why you even started. Those days aren't setbacks. Those days are the entire point. Because anyone can show up when they feel inspired. Anyone can work hard when results are visible. But the person who shows up in month 1, in the void, in the silence, when there's no applause and no proof, that person is building something unbreakable. Here's what I want you to do when month 1 gets hard. And it will get hard. I want you to zoom out. Stop measuring day to day. Stop checking for results every morning like you're refreshing a tracking number. You're not waiting for a package. You're becoming a different person. And that takes time. Instead, measure week to week. Ask yourself, did I show up more days than I didn't? Did I make more aligned choices than misaligned ones? If the answer is yes, you're winning. It doesn't feel like winning because you've been taught that winning looks like trophies and applause and visible transformation. But real winning looks like this. You said you were going to do something, and you did it. Even though it was hard, even though no one saw, even though it didn't feel like enough. That's integrity. And integrity is the only currency that matters in month 1. There's a concept in construction called curing time. When you pour a concrete foundation, it looks solid within hours, but it's not actually load-bearing for 28 days. If you try to build on it too soon, the whole structure collapses. Month 1 is your curing time. You look the same. You might even feel the same, but something foundational is setting, hardening, becoming permanent. And if you rush it, if you quit because you can't see it yet, you'll have to start over. So don't start over. Just keep going. One more day, one more choice, one more moment of honoring the person you committed to becoming. There's a version of you at the end of month 1 that the current you can't even imagine. Not because you'll be transformed yet, but because you'll have proven something to yourself that you've never proven before, that you can be trusted, that when you say you're going to do something, you actually do it. Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Month 1 isn't the month you see results. It's the month you become the kind of person who gets results. And that shift, that quiet, invisible shift in identity, is worth more than anything you could see in the mirror. So when the voice in your head says, "This isn't working," I want you to say this back. "It's working. I just can't see it yet. And I'm going to keep going anyway." That sentence is going to save your life. Use it.
Chapter 4. The Identity You're Defending. You think you want to change, but here's the uncomfortable truth. Part of you is terrified of change, because change doesn't just mean gaining something new, it means losing something old. And what you're losing, whether you realize it or not, is an identity you've been defending for years. Let me ask you a question. Who would you be without your excuses? Without the story that you're too busy, too broke, too old, too tired, too late. Without the narrative that you're the unlucky one, the overlooked one, the one who never gets the break. Who would you be if you couldn't hide behind that anymore? That question makes people furious because it exposes the truth. You're not just fighting against the difficulty of change. You're fighting against the identity you've built around not changing. There's a psychological concept called identity foreclosure. It's when you lock into a sense of self early and then spend the rest of your life defending it even when it no longer serves you. You decided you were not a morning person, and now you spent 20 years protecting that story. You decided you were bad with money, and now every financial mistake is just confirmation. You decided you were not creative, not athletic, not the kind of person who, and now you're living in a prison you built with your own words. But here's the thing about identity. It's not fixed. It's practiced. You're not a morning person because of your DNA. You're not a morning person because you've practiced sleeping in for 10,000 days. You're not bad with money because of some intrinsic flaw. You're bad with money because no one taught you, and you've practiced avoidance instead of education. Every identity you carry is just a behavior you've repeated enough times that it started to feel permanent, which means it can be unpracticed. But first, you have to be willing to let it go. And that's terrifying, because if you're not the busy one, the overwhelmed one, the one who's always struggling, then who are you? If you actually succeed, if you actually transform, you lose the comfort of the familiar story. You lose the sympathy, the justification, the explanation for why your life looks the way it does. And you gain something far more powerful: responsibility. The responsibility to admit that you're capable, that you always were, and that the only thing standing between you and the life you want is the identity you're refusing to release. So let's do an exercise right now. I want you to list 3 identities you've been carrying that no longer serve you. Not out loud, not for anyone else, just for you. Maybe it's, I'm not disciplined. Maybe it's, I'm an anxious person. Maybe it's, I've never been good at follow-through. Write them down. Look at them. And then I want you to ask yourself, what would I have to do to prove that identity wrong? Not forever, just today. If you're not a morning person, what would happen if you woke up early once? Just to see. If you are bad with money, what would happen if you read one article about budgeting? If you're not creative, what would happen if you made something ugly, something terrible, just to break the spell? You don't have to become a different person overnight. You just have to take one action that your old identity wouldn't take. And then another. And another. until the new identity starts to feel more true than the old one. There's a man I know named David. He'd been telling himself he was just not a fit person for 43 years. He had the evidence: bad knees, slow metabolism, a lifetime of preferring books to sports. And then one day his daughter asked him to do a 5K with her. He almost said no, almost pulled out the old identity like a shield, but something stopped him. He said yes, and then he had to deal with the fact that he just committed to something his identity said he couldn't do. So he started walking, not running, walking, 20 minutes a day. That's it. And every time his brain said, "See, you're not a runner. This is stupid. You're too slow," he said, "I'm not trying to be a runner. I'm just trying to be someone who moves." Subtle, but crucial. He didn't attack the old identity head on. He just stopped defending it. By month 2, he was jogging intervals. By month 4, he finished the 5K. Slow, dead last, didn't care. By month 6, he'd sign up for another one. Not because he became a different person, because he stopped being the person he thought he was. Your identity isn't who you are. It's who you've been. And you can be someone else starting right now. But it requires grief. You have to grieve the loss of the old story, the one that kept you small but safe, the one that explained everything but changed nothing. You have to be willing to say goodbye to the version of you that needed the excuse, the out, the reason why not. And that's hard. It's lonely, because the people who loved the old you might not recognize the new you, and you might not recognize yourself. But on the other side of that grief is freedom. The freedom to be who you actually are instead of who you've been pretending to be. The freedom to try, to fail, to grow, to evolve without the weight of a fixed identity crushing every new possibility. So here's the question you need to sit with. What identity are you defending that's costing you the life you actually want? And are you ready to let it go? Not because it was wrong, but because it's finished. You've outgrown it, and the person you're becoming is waiting on the other side of the choice to stop defending who you used to be. Let them go and step forward. Chapter 5, Month 2, When Momentum Whispers. Month 2 is when things get interesting. Not easy, not dramatic, just different. You wake up one morning and realize you didn't have to fight yourself as hard to get out of bed. You make the aligned choice and notice it didn't require a full internal negotiation. You look at the calendar and realize you've been showing up for 30 days straight, and somewhere in the repetition, something shifted. This is momentum, and it doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It whispers. Most people miss it entirely because they're still looking for the lightning bolt, the radical transformation, the moment where everything suddenly clicks into place and becomes effortless. But momentum doesn't work like that. Momentum is subtle. It's the difference between pushing a boulder uphill and pushing it on flat ground. You're still pushing. It's still work, but the resistance has changed. And if you're not paying attention, you'll dismiss it as still not enough and quit right before the compounding kicks in. Here's what's happening in month 2 that you need to understand. Your brain is starting to recognize the pattern. It's beginning to automate the behavior. What took conscious willpower in week 1 now takes slightly less. Not zero, but less. And that small reduction in friction is everything. Because willpower is a finite resource. You only have so much of it in a day. And if every single aligned choice requires maximum effort, you'll burn out before you hit month 3. But when the behavior starts to automate, when it starts to become part of your routine instead of a constant battle, you free up that willpower for the next level. That's the compound effect in action. You're not just building the habit, you're building capacity. Month 2 is also when you start to see the first whispers of evidence. Not transformation, not the after photo, just hints. Maybe your pants fit differently. Maybe you got a compliment. Maybe you finished a project you'd been putting off for months. Maybe someone asked, "Have you been working out?" Or, "You seem different lately." These are breadcrumbs, and your job is to notice them, because your brain is still wired to focus on what's not working. It's still scanning for threats, for problems, for reasons to retreat back to safety. If you don't actively train yourself to see progress, you won't see it. So here's what I want you to do starting in month 2. Every single day, write down one piece of evidence that it's working. Not a huge win, not a milestone, just one small thing that wouldn't have happened 2 months ago. I wanted to skip today, but I didn't. I said no to something that would have derailed me. I felt strong during the workout. I made the sales call I've been avoiding. Tiny, specific, true. Because what you focus on expands, and if you're only focusing on how far you still have to go, you'll never build the belief you need to get there. But if you're tracking evidence, if you're collecting proof that you're becoming someone different, your brain starts to believe the new identity. And belief accelerates everything. There's a researcher named Dr. B.J. Fogg at Stanford who spent decades studying behavior change. His core finding is this: emotion creates habits faster than repetition alone. If you do something and feel good about it, your brain tags it as something to repeat. If you do something and feel nothing, or worse, feel shame because it wasn't perfect, your brain tags it as a threat. So when you notice progress, even small progress, you have to celebrate it. Not in some performative way, just internally. A quiet acknowledgement. I did that. That's different. That matters. That emotional tag is what wires the behavior into your identity.
Month 2 is also when the noise starts. The voice that says, "Okay, you've been good for a few weeks. You can take a break now. You deserve it. And you do deserve rest. You do deserve to celebrate." But there's a difference between intentional rest and sabotage disguised as self-care. Intentional rest is planned. It's strategic. It's part of the architecture. Sabotage is the voice that says, "You've done enough. You can coast now." And if you listen to that voice in month 2, you'll wake up in month 3 right back where you started, because momentum is fragile in the beginning. It's like a flywheel. Getting it moving requires enormous effort, but once it's spinning, it takes less energy to keep it going. Month 1 was you throwing everything you had at the flywheel, just to get it to budge. Month 2 is when it finally starts to turn. And if you stop pushing now, it stops spinning. You have to keep going. Not harder, just consistent. Same energy, same commitment, same daily choice to honor the process even when it's not exciting anymore. Because here's the dirty secret about transformation that nobody tells you. It gets boring. Month 1 is hard, but it's novel. There's a certain drama to it. You're the hero starting the journey. Month 2 is just repetition. The same workout, the same meal prep, the same morning routine, the same work session. And your brain hates repetition. It craves novelty. It wants the dopamine hit of something new. So it's going to start whispering suggestions. Maybe try a different program. Maybe switch up your approach. Maybe this isn't the right path after all. And some of that might be true. But most of it is just your brain trying to seduce you back into the chaos of starting over. Because starting over feels like progress. It feels like you're doing something. But you're not. You're just resetting the clock. The magic isn't in the new program. It's in finishing the one you started. So when the boredom hits, when the novelty wears off, I want you to reframe it. Boredom isn't a sign that it's not working. Boredom is a sign that it's becoming automatic. And automatic is exactly where you want to be. Because once the behavior is automatic, you can stack another one on top of it. That's how you build a completely different life. Not by doing one massive thing, by stacking small automations until they become a system.
Month 2 is when you start to feel the difference between doing the thing and being the thing. In month 1, you were someone trying to wake up early. In month 2, you're someone who wakes up early. In month 1, you were someone trying to build a business. In month 2, you're someone who works on their business every day. The shift is subtle, but it's seismic. Because identity drives behavior far more powerfully than willpower ever could. And once you start to see yourself as the kind of person who does this, the behavior becomes inevitable. So pay attention in month 2. Notice the whispers, the small shifts, the moments where it feels just a little bit easier. And don't dismiss them. Those whispers are the early signs of momentum, and momentum, once it builds, becomes unstoppable. You're not there yet, but you're closer than you've ever been. Keep going. Hey, drop a comment right now. What's the one thing you've been putting off that 6 months could completely change? Write it down. Make it real.
Chapter 6. The discipline no one talks about. Everyone wants to talk about discipline like it's some kind of superpower. Like you either have it or you don't. Like it's genetic. Like some people are just born with an iron will and the rest of us are destined to scroll through our lives half asleep. But that's not what discipline is. Discipline isn't a personality trait. It's a practice. And like any practice, it's built through repetition, refinement, and one singular skill that nobody talks about. The discipline to be bored. Not just tolerate boredom, not just push through it, but to actually embrace it, to sit inside the monotony of doing the same thing every day and not need it to be exciting. Because here's the truth. The life you want is on the other side of 1,000 boring days. Days where nothing special happens, where you don't feel inspired, where no one's watching, where the results aren't visible yet. Days where you just show up and do the thing because you said you would. That's discipline. And our entire culture is designed to rob you of it. Every app, every notification, every algorithm is optimized to hijack your attention the second you feel the slightest discomfort. Bored? Scroll. Uncomfortable? Refresh. Restless? Watch something. Buy something. Consume something. Anything to avoid sitting with yourself in the quiet space where discipline is built. We've been conditioned to believe that if it's not stimulating, it's not worth doing. But the most valuable things you'll ever build are built in silence, in repetition, in the unremarkable accumulation of daily effort that no one will ever celebrate. You want to know why most people quit? Not because they're weak, not because they lack talent or resources, because they can't handle being bored. They start strong. Month 1, they're on fire, posting about it, telling everyone, feeling the high of newness. But by month 2, the shine wears off. It's not new anymore. It's just work. And work, real work, the kind that changes your life, is repetitive. Same actions, same structure, same daily rhythm. And the moment it stops being exciting, they're out. They tell themselves they need a new strategy, a new coach, a new program. But what they actually need is the ability to stay in the room when the room gets boring. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a writer who just finished her first novel. It took her 2 years. I asked her what the hardest part was, expecting her to say plot or character development or writer's block. She said, showing up on day 400 when I had nothing new to say and no evidence anyone would ever read it. That's it. That's the whole game. The willingness to show up on day 400. Not because it's fun, not because you're motivated, not because you feel like it, because you committed to it and your commitment is non-negotiable. There's a kind of discipline that gets glorified, the loud kind, the kind that wakes up at 4 a.m. and runs in the rain and posts about it. And that's fine. If that works for you, great. But there's another kind of discipline that's far more powerful and gets zero recognition. The discipline to do it quietly, to not need the applause, to not need the validation, to not even need to feel good about it, to just do it because it's part of who you are now. That's the discipline that builds empires. The quiet, unsexy commitment to the process when no one's looking and nothing exciting is happening. Most people can be disciplined for a week, a month even. But can you be disciplined for 6 months when nothing changes?
Can you keep showing up when the scale doesn't move, when the clients don't come, when the breakthrough doesn't happen? Can you trust a process when the process feels like it's failing you? That's the test. And here's the part that's going to make you uncomfortable. Discipline isn't about motivation. It's about disconnection from outcome. You think discipline means I'm going to work hard until I get the result. But real discipline means I'm going to work regardless of the result. Because you can't control the outcome. You can only control the input. And if your discipline is dependent on seeing progress, you're going to quit the second progress stalls. But if your discipline is rooted in identity, this is just what I do, this is who I am, then the outcome becomes irrelevant. You show up because that's what people like you do. Not people like the old you, people like the new you. The version of you that doesn't need permission, doesn't need proof, doesn't need external validation to know they're on the right path. Here's a framework that will change everything if you let it. It's called the 2-day rule, and it comes from productivity research, but it applies to everything. The rule is simple. Never miss 2 days in a row. You can miss 1 day. Life happens. You're human. But you never miss 2. Because missing 1 day is an exception. Missing 2 days is the start of a pattern, and patterns become identity. Miss 2 workouts, and suddenly you're someone who used to work out. Miss 2 writing sessions, and you're someone who tried to write a book once. Miss 2 days of showing up for yourself, and you're back to being the person you were before you started. So you protect the streak. Not perfectly, but persistently. 1 day at a time, one choice at a time. And on the days you don't feel like it, which will be most days by month 3, you do it especially then, because those are the days that count. Anyone can show up when they're motivated. Discipline is showing up when you're not. Let me be clear. I'm not telling you to burn out. I'm not telling you to ignore rest or push through injury or grind yourself into dust. I'm telling you that discipline and self-care are not opposites. Sometimes the most disciplined thing you can do is rest. But rest is intentional. It's planned. It's part of the system. What I'm talking about is a voice that says, just this once every single day. Just this once, I'll skip. Just this once, I'll start tomorrow. Just this once, I'll choose the easy thing. That voice will kill your transformation faster than anything else. Because just this once is never just once. It's the beginning of the end. So when that voice shows up, and it will, you acknowledge it. You don't fight it. You just say, I hear you, and I'm doing it anyway. Not because you're tough, not because you're special, because you're disciplined. And discipline isn't about feelings. It's about honoring the agreement you made with yourself when no one else is around to hold you accountable. Month 2 is when discipline stops being a sprint and becomes a posture, a way of being, a default setting. And the people who make it to month 6, they're not more talented, they're not more motivated, they're just more disciplined. In the quietest, most boring, most powerful way.
Chapter 7. Month 3, the plateau that tests everything. Month 3 is where dreams go to die.
Not because it's the hardest month, not because the work gets more intense, but because it's the month where you stop seeing progress, and your brain starts whispering the cruelest lie of all. It's not working. You've been showing up for 90 days. You've been consistent. You've done everything right. And the results have stalled. The weight loss plateaued, the revenue flatlined, the growth stopped. The momentum you felt in month 2 has evaporated, and now you're just grinding through the same routine with nothing to show for it. Welcome to the plateau. This is the valley of death for transformation. This is where most people turn back, convinced they've hit their limit, convinced the universe is telling them to stop. But here's what's actually happening. You haven't stopped progressing. You've stopped progressing visibly. And there's a massive difference. Let me explain. There's a concept in skill acquisition called the plateau of latent potential. It was popularized by James Clear, but the phenomenon has been documented across every field from athletics to neuroscience. Here's how it works. When you start something new, progress is rapid and visible. You're going from 0 to something, so every small gain feels massive. But as you improve, the gains become subtler. You're no longer making rookie mistakes. You're refining, optimizing, building capacity that doesn't show up on a scale or a spreadsheet. Your body is adapting at a cellular level. Your brain is forming new neural pathways. Your skills are compounding in ways that won't be visible until suddenly, all at once, they are. It's like heating water. You turn on the stove. The water goes from 70 degrees to 80, then 90, then 100, then 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 200, 210, and nothing happens. It's just hot water, sitting there, mocking your effort. And then, at 211 degrees, still nothing. But at 212 degrees, it boils. It transforms. It becomes something entirely different. Steam, power, energy. But if you'd turned off the heat at 211 degrees because you didn't see the transformation yet, you'd never know how close you were. That's month 3. You're at 211 degrees, and you're about to quit because you don't see the boil. Here's what you need to understand. The plateau isn't a stop sign. It's a test. It's your psyche's way of asking, do you actually want this? Or did you just want the feeling of wanting this? Because wanting the result is easy. Everyone wants the result. But do you want it enough to keep going when there's no evidence it's coming? Do you want it enough to work in the dark? That's the question month 3 is asking. And how you answer it determines everything. Most people interpret the plateau as failure. They think, I'm doing all this work and nothing's changing, so clearly I'm doing it wrong. So they switch strategies. They change the program. They jump to something new. And in doing so, they reset the entire process. They go back to 0, back to 70 degrees, and they start heating the water all over again. And they'll hit another plateau and switch again. And again. Their entire life becomes a graveyard of things they started and abandoned at 211 degrees. But the people who break through, they don't switch. They double down. They recognize the plateau for what it is. Proof that they're doing deep work. Surface level changes happen fast. Deep transformation takes time. And month 3 is where the deep work is happening.
Let me tell you about a client named Marcus. Marcus was building a coaching business. Month 1, he was on fire. Posted every day, reached out to potential clients, booked 3 discovery calls. Month 2, he signed his first client, got his first testimonial. Things were moving. Month 3, crickets. He posted, no engagement. He reached out, no responses. He showed up, No one seemed to care. He came to me in week 11, ready to quit. "It's not working," he said. "I've been at this for 3 months, and I'm basically where I started." I asked him one question. "What's different about you?" He paused. "I mean, I'm more confident on sales calls now. I've refined my message. I know my offer inside and out. I'm not scared to post anymore." "So, you've transformed," I said. "But my business hasn't. Yet." That "yet" is everything. Because Marcus wasn't the same person he was 90 days ago. He'd built skills, resilience, clarity. He just couldn't see it reflected in his bank account yet. I told him to give it 2 more weeks, not because I knew something magical would happen, but because I knew he needed to prove to himself he could push through the plateau. Week 13, he got a referral. Week 14, he signed 2 clients in 1 day. Not because he changed his strategy, because the work he'd been doing finally caught up to him. That's how the plateau works. You're building underground, and the moment you're about to give up is usually the moment right before the breakthrough. So here's what you do in month 3 when the plateau hits. First, you expect it. You stop being surprised by it. You stop interpreting it as failure. You say, "Of course I'm plateauing. That means I'm doing deep work. That means I'm at 211 degrees." Second, you focus on process over outcome. Stop checking the scale every day. Stop refreshing your bank account. Stop measuring progress by external metrics. Instead, ask yourself, did I do what I said I would do today? If the answer is yes, you're winning, period. The outcome will come, but it's not on your timeline. It's on the timeline of compounding. And compounding is always slower than you want and faster than you expect once it kicks in. Third, you find new metrics. If the external metrics aren't moving, measure the internal ones. How do you feel in your body? How's your energy, your focus, your confidence? Are you sleeping better, thinking clearer, saying no to things that used to derail you? Those are the real transformations, and they're happening right now, even if your gene size hasn't changed. Fourth, you remind yourself why you started. Not the surface reason, the deep one. Not, "I want to lose weight," but "I want to feel alive in my body again." Not, "I want to make money," but "I want to stop feeling powerless." The deep why is what carries you through the plateau, because the deep why doesn't care about timelines. It cares about truth. And the truth is, you're not the same person you were 90 days ago. You've proven you can commit. You've proven you can show up. You've proven you're not who you used to be. That's worth everything, even if no one else sees it yet. Month 3 is the month that separates the people who want to transform from the people who will transform. It's the month where belief is tested, where commitment is forged, where you either become the kind of person who finishes what they start, or you become the kind of person who has a graveyard of almosts. You're at 211 degrees. 1 more degree, and everything changes. So don't stop now. Not because it's easy, not because you can see the finish line, because you're too close to turn back. And the version of you on the other side of this plateau is waiting. Keep going. You know what's sad? About 85% of you audiences who listen never hit subscribe. If that's you, hit that subscribe button now. It's how you tell me this audiobook matters and motivate me to keep creating more for you. Chapter 8. What you're really afraid of. Let's talk about what's actually stopping you. And no, it's not time. It's not money. It's not your circumstances or your schedule or the people in your life. Those are convenient explanations, but they're not the truth. The truth is harder to look at. The truth is you're afraid. Not of failure. Everyone talks about fear of failure, but that's not really it. You're afraid of success. And I know that sounds like pop psychology nonsense, but stay with me.
Because what happens if you actually do this? If you actually transform in 6 months and become the person you've been saying you want to be? What happens to the identity you've been hiding behind? What happens to the relationships that were built around the old you? What happens when you can't use "I'm not that kind of person" as an excuse anymore? Success is terrifying because it removes the buffer between you and responsibility. Right now, you can fail and say, "Well, I tried." You can stay small and say, "I'm just not built for that." You can stay stuck and blame your circumstances. But if you succeed, you have to own it. You have to admit you were always capable. You have to live with the fact that you could have done this years ago, but chose not to. And that realization, that you've been standing in your own way this entire time, that's almost unbearable. So your brain does something clever. It sabotages you. Not obviously, not dramatically, just subtly. You get sick right before the big opportunity. You pick a fight with someone close to you the week you're supposed to launch. You forget to do the thing you said you'd do. You create a crisis that gives you permission to stop. And then you get to say, "See, it wasn't meant to be. The universe was telling me no." But it wasn't the universe. It was you. And the reason you did it is because some part of you is more comfortable with the pain you know than the uncertainty of who you'd become if you succeeded. Let's get specific. Think about the transformation you're pursuing right now. Really picture it. 6 months from now, you've done it. You've hit the goal. You've become that person. Now ask yourself, what will I have to give up? Who will I disappoint? What will people expect from me that I don't know if I can deliver? These are the real questions, and they're scary. Maybe you'll have to give up the friendship that's based on complaining together. Maybe you'll disappoint the family members who are comfortable with you staying small. Maybe you'll be expected to keep growing, keep evolving, keep showing up at a level you're not sure you can sustain. And maybe, just maybe, you'll have to confront the fact that you're capable of far more than you've been pretending. That you've been playing small not because you had to, but because it was easier. There's a concept in psychology called upper limiting. It was coined by Gay Hendricks in his book, The Big Leap. Here's the idea. Everyone has an internal thermostat for how much success, love, happiness, and fulfillment they believe they're allowed to have. When you start to exceed that limit, your subconscious freaks out and creates a problem to bring you back down to the familiar level.
You get the promotion and then get into a car accident. You lose the weight and then binge for a week straight. You sign the client and then ghost them. It's not bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's your upper limit being hit and your system doing whatever it takes to return to homeostasis, even if homeostasis is misery. Because misery, when it's familiar, feels safer than joy when it's new. So here's what you need to do. You need to get honest about what success will actually cost you. Not in terms of time or money, in terms of identity. Who will you have to stop being? What stories will you have to let go of? What comfort will you have to release? Write it down, all of it. The ugly, selfish, embarrassing truths. If I succeed, I'll have to admit my parents were wrong about me. If I succeed, I'll lose the identity of being the underdog. If I succeed, people will expect things from me, and I'm afraid I'll let them down. Get it out, look at it, and then ask yourself, is holding on to this fear worth more than the life I'm trying to build? Because that's the trade you're making every time you sabotage yourself. You're choosing the familiar fear over the unknown freedom. And I'm not here to tell you that's wrong. It's human. But I am here to tell you it's a choice. You're not a victim of your fear. You're making a decision, consciously or not, to let it run the show.
and you can make a different decision. Here's the thing about fear. It doesn't go away. People think courage means you're not afraid, but courage means you're terrified and you do it anyway. The fear of success, the fear of being seen, the fear of outgrowing your old life. It's all going to be there in month 4, month 5, month 6. But you're going to do it anyway. Not because you're fearless, because you've decided the cost of staying the same is higher than the cost of changing. And that decision, that singular choice to move forward despite the fear, is what transforms you. Not the actions, the willingness to take the actions, even when every cell in your body is screaming at you to retreat. Let me tell you something that might sting. The version of you that you're trying to become, they're not afraid of success. They're not worried about being too much or too visible or too powerful. They've made peace with the fact that growth means loss, that becoming more means leaving behind what was. And they've decided it's worth it. So the question isn't whether you're afraid. The question is, are you willing to be afraid and keep going anyway? Because on the other side of that fear is everything you've ever wanted. Not just the external goal, the internal freedom. The freedom to be who you actually are instead of who you've been pretending to be. The freedom to want more without apologizing for it. The freedom to take up space, to be seen, to succeed without shrinking back down to make other people comfortable. That's what you're really afraid of. And that's what's waiting for you if you just keep going. So feel the fear, name it, acknowledge it, and then do the thing anyway.
Chapter 9, Month 4, The Quiet Revolution. Month 4 doesn't feel like a revolution. There are no fireworks, no dramatic before and after moment, no sudden clarity that changes everything in an instant. Month 4 feels like Tuesday. You wake up, you do the thing, you go to bed. Repeat. But here's what you don't realize is happening. You're in the middle of a complete identity shift, and it's so gradual, so seamless, that you almost don't notice it. Until one day, you do. You're in a conversation, and someone offers you something. A drink, an opportunity to skip, a chance to fall back into the old pattern, and you say no without thinking. Not because you had to wrestle with it, not because you gave yourself a pep talk. You just said no, because that's not who you are anymore. Or you're faced with a challenge that 3 months ago would have sent you spiraling, and you handle it calmly, competently, like it's nothing. And you think, wait, when did I become the kind of person who can do this? The answer is gradually. Then suddenly. Month 4 is where the work you've been doing in the dark finally starts to integrate into your nervous system. It's not performance anymore. It's not something you're trying to do. It's just who you are. This is the quiet revolution. The moment when discipline becomes identity. When effort becomes ease. When the new normal stops feeling new. And it's one of the most dangerous months of the entire 6-month journey. Because it feels so unremarkable that you might convince yourself it doesn't matter. You might look around and think, I'm still not where I want to be. Maybe I should try something else. Maybe this isn't working. But that would be the greatest tragedy, because month 4 is where everything is working. You just can't see the full picture yet. Let me show you what's actually happening beneath the surface. Neurologically, your brain has spent the last 90 days forming new neural pathways. And now, in month 4, those pathways are becoming myelinated. Myelin is the insulation that wraps around nerve fibers and makes signals travel faster. It's what turns a dirt path into a highway. And it takes time to build. The behavior that felt clunky and forced in month 1, it's becoming smooth, automatic, effortless. You're not trying as hard because you don't have to. The behavior is wiring itself into your identity. Physiologically, if you've been changing your body, month 4 is when the adaptations go deep. Your metabolism has recalibrated, your muscles have rebuilt, your hormones have balanced, your gut microbiome has completely transformed. The changes that were invisible in month 3 are now becoming structural. And psychologically, month 4 is when you stop identifying with your past
and start identifying with your future. You stop saying, I'm trying to be, and start saying, I am. I'm a runner. I'm a business owner. I'm someone who keeps their word. Not as aspiration, as fact. And that shift, that quiet internal shift from becoming to being, changes everything. Because identity is the strongest force in human behavior. You can willpower your way through a month, maybe two, but you can't willpower your way through a lifetime. What you can do is become the kind of person for whom the behavior is inevitable. And that's what's happening in month 4. Here's what this looks like in real life. You stop deciding whether to work out. You just work out. It's what you do on Tuesdays. You stop negotiating with yourself about the hard tasks. You just do them first, because that's how you operate now. You stop wondering if you're capable. You have evidence, mountains of it, 90 days of proof that you are exactly who you've been becoming. This is the month where other people start to notice, not because you've suddenly transformed, but because the transformation has become undeniable. They can't point to one thing. You just seem different, more grounded, more certain, more present. You're not performing confidence. You're not faking discipline. You're just living as the person you've been building yourself into, one decision at a time, for 4 solid months. And people feel that.
They start asking questions. What are you doing differently? Can you help me? And you almost don't know how to answer, because it doesn't feel like you did anything extraordinary. You just showed up every day, even when it was boring, even when it was hard. But that is extraordinary, because most people don't. Most people stop at month 2 when the excitement fades, or month 3 when the plateau hits. But you didn't. You kept going. And now you're in month 4, and the compounding is starting to show. Not in explosive, dramatic ways, in quiet, integrated ways. You sleep better. You think clearer. You make decisions faster. You've stopped tolerating things that don't serve you. You've started expecting more from yourself and others. You've raised your standards, and you didn't even realize you were doing it. That's the quiet revolution. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's irreversible. Because once you've lived as this version of yourself for 4 months, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending you're not capable. You can't go back to the excuses, the delays, the some days. You've proven beyond any doubt that you are someone who finishes what they start. And that knowledge is worth more than any external result. Here's what I need you to understand about month 4. This is the month where you have to protect what you've built. Because the revolution is quiet, it's easy to take for granted. It's easy to think, okay, I've got this now. I can relax. I can coast. And maybe you can, for a day, maybe 2. But if you coast in month 4, you'll stall in month 5. Because momentum is built on consistency, and consistency requires intention. The moment you stop being intentional, the moment you start phoning it in, the flywheel starts to slow. And getting it spinning again takes more effort than just keeping it going. So you don't coast. You don't relax into complacency. You honor the process that got you here. Not with the same intensity as month 1. You don't need that anymore. But with the same commitment. You show up. You do the work. You protect the identity you've built. Because month 4 is also when distractions start to creep in. New opportunities, shiny objects, people who want your time and energy now that you're becoming someone worth knowing. And you have to be discerning. You have to ask, does this move me toward the person I'm becoming, or away from them? Does this align with the life I'm building, or is it a detour disguised as an opportunity? Because not every opportunity is your opportunity, and saying yes to the wrong thing is the same as saying no to the right thing. Month 4 is where you learn to protect your attention like it's the most valuable resource you have, because it is. Your attention is what got you here. Your attention is what will get you to month 6. And if you scatter it, if you let every shiny thing pull you off course, you'll wake up in month 5 wondering why you lost momentum. So you guard it, fiercely. You say no to good things so you can say yes to great things.
You disappoint people in the short term so you can become the person they'll be proud of in the long term. You stay the course. Not because it's easy, not because you're certain, but because you've come too far to turn back now. Month 4 is the quiet revolution. And revolutions aren't won in the streets. They're won in the small, private moments where you choose who you're becoming over who you've been. You're winning. You just don't know it yet. But you will. By month 6, you'll look back at month 4 and realize this was the turning point. The month where you stopped trying and started being. The month where the person you're becoming became the person you are. Keep going. The revolution is working.
Chapter 10. The People Who Will Fall Away. This is the chapter no one wants to talk about. The one that makes you uncomfortable, that feels selfish, that you'll probably resist. But it's the truth, and you need to hear it. When you transform, you will lose people. Not because you're doing anything wrong, not because they're bad people, but because growth is disruptive. And some people are more invested in who you were than who you're becoming. They liked the old you, the predictable you, the you who made them feel comfortable about their own choices. And when you start changing, when you start showing up differently, making different decisions, setting different boundaries, they're going to feel it as a threat, not to you, to themselves. Because your transformation holds up a mirror. It shows them what's possible. And if it's possible for you, then it's possible for them. And if it's possible for them, then they're out of excuses. So instead of celebrating your growth, they'll subtly, or not so subtly, try to pull you back. They'll call you obsessed, extreme, too much. They'll joke about how you've changed. They'll reminisce about the good old days when you used to party with them, complain with them, stay small with them. They'll offer you the drink you're not drinking, the excuse you're not using, the out you're not taking. And when you say no, they'll make it mean something about them. Oh, so you're too good for us now? You've really changed. I miss the old you. And here's the part that's going to hurt. Sometimes they're right. You have changed. You're not the same person. And you can't apologize for that. Because the old you wasn't serving you. The old you was comfortable, convenient, and completely stuck. And if going back to that version of yourself is the price of keeping certain people in your life, then those people need to fall away. I know that sounds harsh. I know it feels ruthless. But let me ask you something. How many times have you dimmed your light so someone else wouldn't feel uncomfortable in the dark? How many times have you stayed small so the people around you wouldn't have to confront their own stagnation? How many dreams have you buried because someone you loved told you they were unrealistic? You've been managing other people's comfort your entire life, and it's kept you stuck. So here's what needs to happen. In month 4, month 5, as you step more fully into who you're becoming, you need to let go of the people who can't grow with you. Not with anger, not with resentment, just with clarity. Some people are meant to be in your life for a season, not forever. And that season might be ending. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean you didn't love them or that the time you spent together didn't matter. It just means you're on different paths now. And trying to drag them along, or worse, slowing down so they can keep up, serves no one. You don't grow by shrinking. You grow by expanding. And expansion means outgrowing certain spaces, certain relationships, certain versions of connection that no longer fit. Here's what this looks like practically. The friend who only calls when they need something, You stop answering every time. The family member who criticizes every choice you make, you stop seeking their approval. The partner who resents your ambition, you stop apologizing for wanting more. You don't have to make a big dramatic exit. You don't have to burn bridges or make pronouncements. You just start prioritizing differently. You start protecting your energy, your time, your attention. You start saying no without explaining yourself. And you start surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your growth instead of resenting it.
Because here's the truth. The right people won't be threatened by your transformation. They'll be inspired by it. They'll cheer you on. They'll ask how they can support you. They'll grow alongside you. And those are the people you need in your life as you move toward month 6. Not the ones who want you to stay the same. The ones who can't wait to see who you become. Let me tell you about Jennifer. Jennifer spent 30 years in a friendship group that revolved around complaining about their jobs, their bodies, their partners, their lives. It was bonding. It was familiar. It was safe. And then Jennifer started her 6-month transformation. She started working out, started a side business, started setting boundaries. And suddenly, the group chat felt different. Every time she shared a win, there was silence, or worse, a passive-aggressive comment disguised as concern. Don't burn yourself out. Must be nice to have all that free time. I hope you're not becoming one of those people. At first, Jennifer tried to downplay her progress. She stopped sharing. She made herself smaller in the conversation. But by month 4, she realized something. She was editing herself to fit into a space she'd outgrown. And the cost of that was her own transformation. So she made a choice, a hard one. She stopped engaging as much. She stopped seeking their approval. She started spending time with people who were also building something. And yes, it hurt. Yes, she grieved the loss of what that friendship had been. But she also freed herself to become who she was meant to be. And by month 6, she had a completely different circle. People who challenged her, inspired her, held her to a higher standard. She didn't lose friends, she upgraded her life. And that's what you'll need to do too. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you're different now. And different needs different. Here's the hard truth. Some people will fall away on their own. They'll feel the shift. They'll sense that you're no longer available for the old dynamic, and they'll drift. Let them. Don't chase, don't convince, don't try to prove that you're still the same person. You're not, and that's the whole point. Other people will need a conversation, a boundary, a clear, kind, firm statement of who you are now and what you're no longer available for. And that conversation will be uncomfortable. But it's necessary, because you can't build a new life with people who are invested in your old one. You can't rise while carrying people who want you to stay down. And you can't transform while managing everyone else's feelings about your transformation. So you're going to have to choose. Them or you. Comfort or growth. The past or the future. And I already know what you're going to choose. Because you didn't make it to month 4 by prioritizing other people's comfort. You made it here by prioritizing your becoming. So keep going. Let the people fall away who need to fall away. Grieve them if you need to. Honor what was. But don't cling to what's no longer serving you. Because the people who are meant to be in your life at month 6, they're already on their way. You just need to make room for them.
Chapter 11, Month 5, When You Stop Recognizing Yourself. Month 5 is disorienting. Not in a bad way, just strange. You catch your reflection and do a double take. Not because you look drastically different, though you might, but because there's something in your eyes that wasn't there before. certainty, calm, presence. You're in a situation that used to make you anxious, and you're fine, more than fine. You're handling it. Someone asks you a question about your work, your goals, your life, and you answer with clarity and confidence. And then you think, who just said that? You realize you haven't thought about the old habit in days, the one that used to run your life, the coping mechanism, the numbing behavior, the escape route. It's just gone. And you didn't even notice when it left. This is month 5. This is when you stop recognizing yourself. And it's one of the most profound, slightly unsettling, absolutely beautiful experiences of the entire journey. Because for the first time, maybe ever, you're meeting the person you've been building. Not the idea of them, not the aspiration, the actual person. And they're a stranger. A stranger who wakes up early without an alarm, who makes aligned choices without internal warfare, who speaks up, sets boundaries, takes up space. A stranger who doesn't apologize for wanting more, who doesn't shrink to make others comfortable, who doesn't need permission to exist fully. And the weirdest part? This stranger is you. You've been working toward this for 5 months, 150 days, thousands of small decisions that seemed insignificant at the time. And now, all at once, you're living in the result of those decisions. You're not becoming anymore. You've become. And it's terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Because if you're this person now, if you're capable of this, then what else is possible? What other identities have you been carrying that aren't true? What limitations have you been accepting that were never real? Month 5 cracks you open. It shows you that everything you thought was fixed about yourself was actually just practiced. And if you can unpractice one identity and step into another, then nothing about you is permanent except your choice to keep evolving. That realization is power. But it's also responsibility. Because now you know you're capable of transformation. You can't unknow it. You can't go back to the old excuses. You can't pretend you're stuck. You're not stuck. You never were. You were just comfortable. And now, comfort feels like a cage. Let me tell you what month 5 feels like emotionally. It feels like grief and celebration happening at the same time. You're grieving the old you, the familiar you, the you that people knew and loved and expected you to be. That version is gone. And even though they were limiting you, even though they were keeping you small, there's still a loss there. Because that version of you survived a lot. They got you through hard times. They kept you safe, even if safe meant small. And now you're saying goodbye to them. Not with resentment, with gratitude. Thank you for getting me here. I don't need you anymore. That's grief. And at the same time, you're celebrating. You're celebrating the fact that you did it. You didn't quit. You didn't give up when it got hard, when it got boring, when it felt like nothing was working. You kept going. And now you're standing in the evidence of your own commitment. You're living proof that you can trust yourself. And that might be the most valuable thing you've gained in 5 months. Not the weight loss, not the money, not the external achievement. The trust. The bone-deep, unshakable trust that when you say you're going to do something, you do it. That changes everything. Because once you trust yourself, you stop needing validation from anyone else. You stop needing permission. You stop needing proof. You stop needing certainty. You just move, and you trust that you'll figure it out. That's freedom, and it's waiting for you in month 5. But here's the thing about month 5 that nobody warns you about. It's lonely.
Not because you're alone, but because you're different now. And different is isolating until you find your new tribe. The old conversations don't fit anymore. The old complaints feel trivial. The old dramas feel exhausting. You've outgrown the frequency you used to operate on, and now you're searching for a new one. And in the meantime, you're in this in-between space. Not who you were, not yet fully embodied in who you're becoming. Just here, in the liminal space, in the gap. And it's uncomfortable, but it's also sacred. Because the liminal space is where transformation lives. It's the space between caterpillar and butterfly, between the old life and the new one. You can't rush it. You can't skip it. You just have to be in it and trust that on the other side, there's a version of you that makes all of this worth it. Here's what you need to do in month 5. First, you need to document this. Write it down. Take pictures. Record voice memos. Not for social media, for you. Because 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, you're going to need to remember that you did this. You're going to face another challenge, another transformation, another moment where you doubt yourself, and you're going to need evidence that you've done hard things before. Month 5 is that evidence. So capture it, honor it, acknowledge how far you've come. Second, you need to recalibrate your goals. Because the goal you set in month 1, you're probably closer to it than you think. Or maybe you've already surpassed it and you're still operating like you're chasing it. Month 5 is when you zoom out and ask, what do I actually want now? Not what I wanted 5 months ago, now. Because you're different. Your capacity is different. Your vision is different. And your goals need to reflect that. Maybe you aim to lose 20 pounds and you've lost 15. Don't coast. Aim for 25. Maybe you aim to make an extra 1,000 a month and you're at 800. Don't settle. Aim for 2,000. Maybe you aim to feel better and you feel good. Don't stop. Aim for great. You're not moving the goalposts to torture yourself. You're moving them because you've expanded. And expansion requires new targets. Third, you need to start thinking about month 7. I know, you're not even done with month 6 yet. But month 5 is when you start planning for what comes after. Because here's the trap. People hit their 6-month goal and then they stop. They think, I did it. I'm done. And within weeks, sometimes days, they're sliding back. Not because they're weak, because they didn't have a plan for maintenance. Transformation isn't a destination, it's a new baseline. And you need to start building the systems that will keep you here. What does life look like after month 6? What habits do you keep? What do you add? What do you remove? Who do you become when you're not becoming anymore? When you're just being? Start thinking about that now. Because the worst thing you can do is spend 6 months transforming and then have no idea how to live as the transformed version of yourself. Month 5 is preparation for the final push and for the life that comes after. You're not recognizing yourself right now. And that's exactly the point. The old you wouldn't have made it this far. The old you would have quit in month 2 or 3 or 4. But you didn't. You kept going. And now you're someone new. Someone stronger, clearer, more aligned. Someone who doesn't need to recognize themselves in the mirror to know they're on the right path. Because the path isn't about recognition, it's about becoming. And you're doing it. One day, one choice, one moment at a time. Month 5 is the proof. Now finish.
Hey, drop a comment right now. What's the one thing you've been putting off that 6 months could completely change? Write it down. Make it real. Chapter 12. The Currency of Consistency. Let's talk about the one thing that got you here. Not motivation, not talent, not luck. Consistency. The boring, unglamorous, utterly unsexy practice of showing up even when you don't feel like it. That's the currency of transformation. And by month 5, you've been spending it for 150 days straight. You've made deposits every single day, small ones, unremarkable ones. And now, finally, you're starting to see the compound interest. But here's what most people don't understand about consistency. It's not about perfection. It's about frequency. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present more often than you're absent. You don't have to have a flawless track record. You just have to have more wins than losses. 51% is enough. 60% is great. 70% and you're unstoppable. But you have to keep showing up because consistency is the only edge that matters. Someone more talented than you will quit. Someone smarter than you will get distracted. Someone with more resources than you will lose focus. But if you just keep going, if you just keep showing up day after day, week after week, month after month, you will outlast them. Not because you're better, because you're consistent. And consistency beats talent every single time. There's a reason the tortoise beat the hare. It's not a cute story. It's a law. Slow and steady doesn't just win the race. It's the only thing that wins the race. Because fast and inconsistent gets you nowhere. You can sprint for a week, a month, maybe even 2. But you can't sprint for 6 months. You can't sprint for a year. You can't sprint for a lifetime. Sustainable transformation requires a sustainable pace. And that pace is built on consistency. Let me show you the math. If you improve by 1% every day for a year, you don't end up 165% better. You end up 37 times better. That's the power of compounding. But it only works if you show up. Miss 1 day and the compound resets. Miss 2 days and you're going backward. But show up, even imperfectly, and the compound keeps building. 1%, then another, until you're unrecognizable. That's what you've been doing for 5 months, and that's why you're not the same person anymore. Here's the hard part about consistency that no one tells you. It stops feeling meaningful. In month 1, every rep mattered. Every workout felt like progress. Every aligned choice felt like a victory. But by month 5, it's just routine. You're not celebrating anymore. You're not tracking every win. You're just doing it. And that can feel empty. Like, is this it? Is this all there is? And the answer is yes, this is it.
This is what mastery looks like. It's not exciting. It's not sexy. It's not Instagram worthy. It's just you showing up, doing the thing over and over because that's who you are now. And that's more valuable than any highlight reel. Because highlights fade, but identity lasts. You're not someone who did a 6-month transformation. You're someone who is consistent. And that identity will carry you for the rest of your life. Every goal you set from here on out, you'll approach it the same way. Not with a burst of motivation, with a commitment to consistency. You'll break it down into daily actions. You'll show up even when it's boring. You'll trust the process even when you can't see the results. Because you've proven to yourself that it works. You've spent 5 months becoming living proof that consistency is the only strategy you need. And now you get to take that into every area of your life. Want better relationships? Be consistent in how you show up. Want financial freedom? Be consistent in how you manage money. Want creative success? Be consistent in how you create. The formula doesn't change. The currency doesn't change. Consistency is always the answer. Here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to look back at the last 150 days and count the wins. Not the big ones, the small ones. Every day you showed up when you didn't want to. Every time you chose the aligned action over the easy one. Every moment you honored your commitment to yourself, even when no one was watching. Count them. Because those moments, those are your wealth. Not the outcome, not the result, the reps. Every single rep you did in the dark, when it didn't feel like it mattered, when no one was applauding, when you weren't sure it was working, those are the reps that built you. And they're worth more than any external validation. Because they taught you the most important lesson you'll ever learn. You can trust yourself. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. Not because it's easy, not because you feel like it, because you're consistent. And consistency is your superpower. So as you move into month 6, as you approach the finish line, I want you to remember this. The goal isn't to cross the line and stop. The goal is to cross the line and keep going. Because the person you've become in the last 5 months, they don't stop at 6. They keep building, keep growing, keep showing up. Not because they have to, because they are someone who does. That's the currency of consistency. And you're rich beyond measure. Now go finish what you started.
Chapter 13, Month 6, The Threshold Crossing. You're here. 180 days, 6 months. The finish line you could barely see when you started. And here's what's wild. You thought you'd feel different when you got here. You thought there'd be a moment. A clear, definitive before and after. A lightning bolt of realization where everything clicked into place and you knew you'd made it. But that's not how it works. Because you've been changing so gradually, so consistently, that there was no single moment. There were 1,000 moments. 1,000 small decisions. 1,000 tiny shifts. 1,000 mornings where you chose to keep going. And now, all of those moments have accumulated into this. Into you. Standing here. On the other side. Month 6 isn't the end. It's the threshold. The crossing from who you were into who you are. And the beautiful, slightly anticlimactic truth is, you've already crossed it. You crossed it weeks ago, maybe even months ago, and you didn't notice because you were too busy doing the work. But now, as you look back, you can see it clearly. The old you wouldn't recognize the current you. The old you who made excuses, who waited for permission, who stayed small because it was safer. That person is gone, and in their place is someone who finishes what they start, who trusts themselves, who doesn't need external validation to know they're on the right path. Someone who shows up. That's who you are now. Not who you're trying to be, who you are. And that changes everything. Because identity is destiny. Once you see yourself as the kind of person who does this, who commits and follows through, who transforms themselves through sheer will and consistency, you can't unsee it. Every future challenge, every new goal, every moment of doubt, you'll have this to come back to. You'll have the evidence.
You gave yourself 6 months, and you changed everything. Not because you're special, not because you got lucky, because you decided. And then you didn't undecide. Let me tell you what month 6 actually is. It's not a celebration, though you should celebrate. It's not an ending, though something has definitely ended. It's a recalibration. A moment where you stop and take stock of who you've become and what you want to do with this new version of yourself. Because the transformation you've undergone isn't just about the external goal. It's about the internal shift. You're not the same person who started this journey. Your capacity has expanded. Your standards have risen. Your tolerance for mediocrity has evaporated. You've tasted what it feels like to live in alignment with your potential, and you can't go back to sleep walking through life. So the question isn't, did I hit my goal? The question is, who am I now? And what do I want to build next? Because this is just the beginning. Month 6 is the launch pad, not the landing. You've spent 6 months proving you can transform. Now you get to spend the rest of your life living as a transformed version. And that's where most people stumble. They hit the 6-month mark, they achieve the goal, and then they stop. They stop doing the things that got them here. They relax back into old patterns. They convince themselves they've earned a break. And within weeks, sometimes days, the old habits creep back in. Not because they're weak, because they didn't build a maintenance plan. They treated transformation like a sprint instead of a lifestyle change. So here's what you need to understand as you cross this threshold. The habits that got you here are the habits that will keep you here. You don't get to stop waking up early just because you hit month 6. You don't get to abandon the routine just because you achieved the result. The result isn't the point. The identity is the point. And you maintain identity the same way you built it, through consistency. So month 6 is when you ask yourself, what am I keeping? Which habits are non-negotiable? Which routines have become part of who I am? Which practices do I need to protect, even as life gets busy, even as new challenges arise? Write them down. Make them sacred, because those habits are the foundation of everything you've built. And foundations need maintenance. But here's the other side of month 6. You also get to ask, what am I releasing? Because not everything you did to get here needs to come with you. Maybe you needed the rigid structure in month 1 to build discipline. But now, maybe you have the internal compass to navigate with more flexibility. Maybe you needed to say no to everything in month 3 to protect your focus. But now, maybe you have the capacity to say yes to the right things. Maybe you needed to prove something in month 5. But now, maybe you can just be without performing. Month 6 is about integration, taking the lessons, the habits, the identity shifts, and weaving them into a sustainable way of living. Not perfection, not rigidity, just a new normal that honors who you become without requiring you to white-knuckle your way through life forever. Here's what this looks like practically. The workout routine that saved you in month 2, maybe it evolves. Maybe you try something new, but you don't stop moving. The morning routine that grounded you in month 4, maybe it gets shorter. Maybe it shifts, but you don't abandon the practice of starting your day with intention. The boundaries you set in month 5, maybe they soften in some areas, but you don't go back to people-pleasing and self-abandonment. You take what worked, you release what doesn't serve you anymore, and you keep building. Because transformation isn't a one-time event, it's a way of life, and you've just spent 6 months learning how to live it. Let me tell you about the moment you'll remember most from month 6. It won't be the day you hit the goal. It won't be the celebration or the compliments or the external validation. It'll be a quiet moment, a Tuesday afternoon, a random conversation, a glance in the mirror, and you'll realize I'm different. Not trying to be, not pretending to be. I just am. And that realization, that quiet, undeniable knowing, is worth more than any achievement. Because achievements fade, trophies collect dust, results plateau. But identity is forever. You're not someone who completed a 6-month transformation. You're someone who transforms, period. Someone who sees a gap between who they are and who they want to be, and they close it. Someone who commits to growth not as a project, but as a way of life. Someone who doesn't wait for permission or perfect conditions or proof that it'll work. They just start and they keep going. That's who you are now. And that identity will carry you through every challenge, every goal, every season of life from here forward. So as you stand here at month 6, at the threshold between who you were and who you are, I want you to do something. I want you to turn around and look at where you started. Look at the person who was standing there 6 months ago, scared and hopeful, and unsure if they could actually do this. Look at everything they've been through, every hard day, every moment of doubt, every time they wanted to quit and didn't. And I want you to thank them. Thank them for starting, for showing up, for trusting the process even when they couldn't see the outcome. Because without them, you wouldn't be here. And then I want you to turn back around. Look ahead at the next 6 months, the next year, the next decade. Look at all the potential waiting for you, all the gold you'll set, all the versions of yourself you haven't met yet. And I want you to make them a promise. Promise them that you won't stop here. Promise them that you'll keep growing, keep evolving, keep becoming. Promise them that 6 months was just the beginning. Because it was. You've crossed the threshold. Now step fully into the life you've built.
Chapter 14. The person you're about to become. You know what's fascinating about month 6? It's not about who you've become. It's about who you're about to become. Because the person standing here at the end of 6 months is incredible, transformed, unrecognizable from who they were. But they're not the final version. There is no final version. There's only the next version, and the next, and the next. Evolution doesn't stop. It just compounds. And now that you've proven you can transform yourself in 6 months, you have a choice. You can coast on this win for the rest of your life, telling the story of that one time you did something hard. Or you can ask yourself the most dangerous question you'll ever ask. What else is possible? Because if you can do this, what else have you been wrong about? What other limitations have you been accepting that aren't real? What other versions of yourself are waiting to be discovered? 6 months ago, you didn't think you were capable of this. And you were wrong. So what else are you wrong about? Maybe you think you're not creative, but you haven't tried creating consistently for 6 months. Maybe you think you're not a leader, but you haven't stepped into that role with the same commitment you just brought to this transformation. Maybe you think you've hit your ceiling financially, relationally, spiritually. But have you given yourself 6 months to prove that wrong? This is the real gift of month 6. Not the result, the realization. The realization that you are far more capable, far more resilient, far more powerful than you ever gave yourself credit for. And once you know that, once you feel that in your bones, you can't unknow it. You can't go back to playing small. You can't go back to accepting less than what you're capable of. You can't go back to the old story, because the old story is dead. And you killed it. You killed it with consistency, with discipline, with 6 months of choosing yourself over comfort. And now you get to write a new story. Not about who you were, about who you're becoming. So let's talk about that person. The person that you're about to become in the next 6 months, the next year, the next 5 years. Who are they? Now, who do you want them to be? Who are they going to be if you keep showing up the way you've been showing up? Because that's the trajectory you're on now. You're not hoping for transformation anymore. You're living it. And if you keep living it, if you keep applying the same principles, clarity, consistency, courage, to new areas of your life, there's no limit to who you can become. Think about it. You just proved you can rewire your habits. So what habit do you want to build next? You just proved you can push through plateaus. So what goal have you been avoiding because you thought it was too hard? You just proved you can outgrow relationships that don't serve you. So what other areas of your life need that same ruthless clarity? You have the blueprint now. You know how transformation works. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's not talent. It's deciding what you want, building systems to get there, and showing up every day, even when you don't feel like it. That's it. That's the whole formula. And you can apply it to anything. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, before this chapter ends, I want you to set your next 6-month goal. Not a vague intention, a specific target. What do you want to accomplish in the next 180 days? Maybe it's the next level of the goal you just achieved. Maybe it's something completely different. Maybe you transformed your body and now you want to transform your business. Maybe you built financial stability and now you want to build a relationship. Maybe you mastered discipline and now you want to master creativity. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you don't stop. Because the biggest mistake you can make right now is thinking, I've arrived. You haven't arrived. You've just leveled up. And the next level is waiting. So, set the goal. Write it down. Make it real. And then ask yourself the same question you asked 6 months ago. Am I willing to give myself 6 months to change everything? Because you already know the answer. You've done it once. You can do it again, and again, and again, for the rest of your life. That's the person you're about to become. Not someone who transformed once, someone who transforms continuously. Someone who doesn't settle, doesn't plateau, doesn't stop growing. Someone who sees potential and chases it, who sees a gap and closes it, who sees a version of themselves they haven't met yet and does whatever it takes to become them. That's who's waiting for you on the other side of the next 6 months. And the 6 months after that. And every 6 months for the rest of your life. Because you're not done. You're just getting started. Here's the truth about transformation that no one tells you. It's addictive. Once you taste what it feels like to evolve, to grow, to become more than you were, you can't go back to stagnation. Comfort starts to feel like death. Safety starts to feel like a cage. You need the challenge. You crave the growth. Not because you're broken or because you're never satisfied, because you're alive. And alive things grow. That's what you've become. Fully, undeniably alive. And that aliveness is going to propel you forward for the rest of your days. So don't fear the next challenge. Don't resist the next transformation. Embrace it. Because the person you're about to become is even more incredible than the person you are right now. And that person, they're already proud of you.
They're looking back at this moment, at the you standing here at month 6, and they're thanking you. Thanking you for not stopping, for not settling, for choosing to keep becoming. So keep going. Not because you have to, because you get to. You get to spend the rest of your life becoming the fullest, most expressed, most powerful version of yourself. And all it takes is the same thing it took to get here. 6 months, one decision, daily commitment. The person you're about to become is waiting. Go meet them. You know what's sad? About 85% of you audiences who listen never hit subscribe. If that's you, hit that subscribe button now. It's how you tell me this audiobook matters and motivate me to keep creating more for you. Chapter 15. Integration. Your first day of forever. This is it. Day 181. The day after. The first morning of the rest of your life. And here's what nobody prepared you for. It feels normal. You wake up, you go through your routine, you do the things you've been doing for 6 months. There's no parade, no trophy ceremony, no dramatic music playing in the background. It's just Tuesday, or Wednesday, or whatever day it is. And that's exactly as it should be. Because what you've built over the last 6 months wasn't a performance, it was a life. And life doesn't end at the finish line, it just keeps going. The question is, who are you going to be as it goes? Are you going to be the person who did that thing one time? The person who has a great story to tell at parties about that 6 months they transformed their life? Or are you going to be the person who lives the transformation, who integrates it so deeply that it's not a story, it's just who they are? That's what this final chapter is about. Not the celebration, not the looking back, the integration. The practice of taking everything you've learned, everything you've become, and weaving it into the fabric of your everyday life so seamlessly that you don't have to think about it anymore, so that it's not something you do, it's something you are. Let's start with the most important truth about day 181. You're not starting over. You're starting from a higher baseline, starting from a new identity, starting from proof that you're capable of anything you commit to. That's not nothing. That's everything. But it also means the rules have changed. The structure you needed in month 1, you might not need it anymore. The rigidity that saved you in month 3, it might actually limit you now. The intensity you brought to month 6, it's not sustainable forever. Integration means finding the balance between discipline and flexibility, between commitment and ease, between structure and flow. It means asking, what do I need to keep doing, and what can I release? Because not everything that got you here needs to come with you. Some of the scaffolding can come down now that the building is standing. But you have to be honest about what's scaffolding and what's foundation. The daily movement, that's foundation. You keep that. The specific workout program, that's scaffolding. You can evolve that. The morning routine, foundation. You protect that. The exact time you wake up, scaffolding. You can adjust that. The commitment to growth, foundation. That's forever. The specific goal you just achieved, scaffolding. Time for a new one. You see the difference? Foundation is non-negotiable. It's the core principles, the identity shifts, the practices that keep you aligned. Scaffolding is temporary. It served its purpose, and now you can let it go and build something new. Integration is knowing which is which. Here's what integration looks like practically.
You don't stop working out just because you hit your fitness goal. But maybe you shift from 5 days a week to 4. Maybe you try a new type of training. Maybe you focus on maintenance instead of progression for a season. You don't abandon your budget just because you hit your financial goal. But maybe you loosen the restrictions a little. Maybe you allocate more for joy. Maybe you invest differently. You don't stop setting boundaries just because you've built healthier relationships. But maybe you soften in certain areas. Maybe you let people back in who've earned it. Maybe you extend grace where you were once rigid. The principles stay. The application evolves. That's integration. And it requires something most people struggle with: self-awareness. You have to be honest with yourself about what's working and what's not. About when you're honoring your growth and when you're slipping back into old patterns. About when flexibility is healthy and when it's just an excuse. This is the most nuanced part of the entire journey, because in month 1, everything was black and white. You either did the thing or you didn't. You either showed up or you quit. But in integration, there's a lot of gray, and you have to be mature enough to navigate it. You have to be able to say, I'm taking a rest day because my body needs it, and mean it, not use it as an excuse to slide. You have to be able to say, I'm saying yes to this opportunity even though it's outside my routine, and trust that you're strong enough to come back to center. You have to be able to give yourself grace without giving yourself permission to regress. That's the balance. And it takes practice. You're going to stumble. You're going to have days, maybe weeks, where you slip back into old habits. And when that happens, you're going to have a choice. You can spiral, tell yourself you've failed, that you're back to square one, that the transformation was temporary, or you can integrate the slip. You can say, okay, I went off track. That's data. What can I learn from this? What do I need to adjust? And then you get back on track. Not with shame, not with punishment, with curiosity. Because integration isn't perfection, it's iteration. It's the ongoing practice of becoming, refining, adjusting, growing. It's the practice of living as someone who's committed to evolution, not someone who's arrived. Let me tell you what the rest of your life looks like if you integrate this correctly. You wake up and you don't have to fight yourself to do the aligned thing. You just do it because that's who you are. You face a challenge and you don't panic, you don't spiral. You just apply the same principles you've been practicing for 6 months. Clarity, consistency, courage. You set a new goal and you don't doubt whether you can do it. You know you can because you've proven it. You encounter someone living the life you used to live, stuck, making excuses, waiting for the right time, and instead of judgment, you feel compassion because you remember. You remember what it felt like to be there, and you also remember what it took to leave. That's integration. That's wisdom. That's the life you've built. And it's available to you every single day from here forward. Not because you're special, because you chose it. And you keep choosing it. One day at a time, one decision at a time. Here's what I want you to do starting today, day 181. I want you to create what I call your integration ritual. It's a weekly practice where you check in with yourself. Not to judge, to assess. Every week you ask yourself 3 questions. What's working? What practices, habits, behaviors are still serving me? What's slipping? Where am I starting to drift back toward the old patterns? What needs to evolve? What's no longer serving me that I'm holding on to out of habit? That's it. 3 questions. 10 minutes. But those 10 minutes will keep you on track for the rest of your life. Because integration isn't a one-time thing. It's a practice. A lifelong practice of checking in, adjusting, realigning.
of making sure you're living in integrity with the person you've become, not slipping back into the person you were. And here's the beautiful part. The more you practice integration, the easier it gets. The more you check in, the faster you catch the slips. The more you adjust, the less you drift. Until eventually, integration becomes automatic.
You don't have to think about it. You just live it. That's mastery. Not perfection, not rigidity. Fluidity with structure. Flexibility with foundation. That's the rest of your life. And it starts right now. So let me ask you one final question. The same question I asked you 6 months ago, but with new weight, new meaning. Who do you want to be 6 months from now? Not what do you want to have, not what do you want to achieve. Who do you want to be? Because you've learned the secret now. Achievement is temporary. Identity is permanent. And if you keep building your identity, if you keep choosing to become instead of just accomplish, there's no limit to what you'll create. You gave yourself 6 months to change everything. And you did. You changed your body, your mind, your habits, your standards, your life. But more than that, you changed you. And that version of you, the one standing here right now, is the most valuable thing you ever created. So protect them, honor them, keep building them, because they're just getting started. 6 months ago, you were standing at the edge of the rest of your life and you didn't even know it. Today, you're standing at a new edge, the edge of everything that comes next. All the goals you haven't set yet, all the versions of yourself you haven't met yet, all the life you haven't lived yet. It's all waiting. And you're ready. You've proven it. 6 months, 180 days, thousands of choices that seem small at the time, but added up to everything. So here's what I want you to remember as you step into day 181 and every day after. You're not someone who transformed once. You're someone who transforms. It's not what you did, it's who you are. And who you are is someone who doesn't settle, doesn't stop, doesn't wait for permission or perfect conditions. Someone who sees the gap between where they are and where they want to be, and they close it. Over and over and over again for the rest of their life. That's you. That's who you've become. And nothing can take that away from you. Not failure, not setbacks, not time. You've crossed the threshold. Now live like it. Welcome to the first day of forever.
Closing. You did it. Not just the 6 months, not just the goal. You did the hardest thing a human being can do. You became someone new. And now you get to spend the rest of your life living as them, building on what you've created, reaching for what comes next, transforming again and again and again. Because that's what you do now. You don't survive. You don't settle. You evolve. And evolution is the most beautiful way to live. So go. Step forward. Keep becoming. The world is waiting for the fullest version of you, and you're just getting started.